Hey guys, Keira here for Smashing Sundays. Today I'm going to look at non-judgmental stance and why it's important. To take a non-judgmental stance is to focus on rather than whether you perceive it as good or bad, terrible or wonderful, whether it's something you should or should not do. It's just the event, the person, the object, the observation. It's about not evaluating something. And it is a hard skill to master. And it's certainly not one that, DBT therapists expect their clients to, take on 24/7. Like, I'm not going to be non-judgmental all the time, but there are, specific times where it is, more beneficial than others. And from a, social and evolutionary psychology point of view, there is some, benefit to being able to, judge something as good or bad in that kind of instance, particularly for safety reasons. So it's not suggesting that judgments are bad, it's just that sometimes we get caught up in the judgments and our opinions of facts, that we, act in a certain way. One example is I was reprimanded at work for something that happened, and I admit I judged the situation, and I judged it quite harshly. It went from I'm a bad nanny to I'm a horrible person to why do I bother, and it just spirals. And I guess in that instance it would be appropriate to take a more non-judgmental stance and to focus on what happened, what my boss was saying, and what my boss wanted me to do, rather than putting judgments in her mouth as well as my own. And I guess that's an example of the fact that sometimes you can't not judge, they come quite unconsciously, but it's important then not to judge the fact that you are judging. It's better just to accept it and, accept it for what it is, not, evaluate it. You just go, I am having this thought, or I'm having this judgment. Because I know when we were doing DBT and we'd be focusing on taking a non-judgmental stance, we'd have an object and we'd describe it in our minds, observe it and describe it, but we weren't allowed to use judgments. And we'd be sitting there and you'd watch people around the room, and as soon as they kind of felt themselves judging, you'd see their faces just screw up and you're like, oh crap, I judged. And then you find yourself, thinking negatively about the fact that you've just judged when you're not supposed to be. It's always a fun thing to watch someone and like, no. But it doesn't mean you're doing the skill wrong, it just means that you need to acknowledge that you had that thought and then not focus on it. So yeah, that's kind of the what non-judgmental skill stance is. It's particularly useful in times where judging something leads to a spiral of unhelpful emotions, and I'm judging the emotions there. For example, if when you eat a meal you struggle and you judge how big something is, or how calorie dense, or how fatty, or how carb dense, whatever it is, and you judge that, it makes the process of eating bigger than what it should be, and in that case it's better off going, I am having, say, a portion of chicken, mashed potato and vegetables, for example, rather than I have this fatty piece of chicken or this lean piece of chicken, and just taking all the opinion of the meal away. But at the same time, to do that all the time, it takes away some of the enjoyment of eating. For me, I currently don't struggle with negative judgments about what I'm eating, so it's not really appropriate for me to take a non-judgmental stance, because it takes some of the fun of, eating, I remember this coming up in therapy, that, if I go to a restaurant, I don't want to have to sit there and have a non-judgmental stance and not be able to enjoy, or, focus on how wonderful the tastes are. So it's something you've got to balance, but if it gets the nutrition in, then it's obviously a good thing. It's also really useful to take a non-judgmental stance about your physical appearance. I've done non-judgmental body scans in therapy before, and they're surprisingly hard, because you sit there and you try and describe, and all these little judgments come in. Whether good or bad, and it is a useful, thing to try to, non-judgmentally look at your physical appearance. And even in just day-to-day non-therapy or recovery related events or places, it can be useful. For example, when I worked in a supermarket, we were all actually taught to take a non-judgmental stance in regards to our customers, particularly because we were in a lower socio-economic area with a relatively high level of violence and theft, and there was a fairly high crime rate, and to take a judgmental stance while working there made it really stressful, because you're judging everybody as, bad, and you just stress out, and two, it's not really fair on, the majority of the people that we were working with. And I admit at first it was really hard to separate, a customer from my, opinion of the area and the type of person they looked like. But in the end, it made all of us better checkout staff. And it actually had a lot of positive effects on our store as a whole. We actually had a fairly good customer service rating. So yeah, my non-judgmental stance can help in the workforce as well. And my throat is starting to go, so I'm going to leave it there, and I will see you guys next week.